Hello. The fly I'm going to do today is one called the Lake George. It's from Ray Bergman's Trout. Lake George is a tourist area about 90 miles south of where I grew up in New York. I grew up in Plattsburgh, and Lake George is a beautiful resort area in the Adirondacks, and this is kind of an Adirondack version of the Parmigiani Belle and some other flies, Premier, etc. These flies were meant to imitate the fin of a brook trout. And previous to these flies being created, brook trout fins were used as bait to catch other brook trout. Brook trout being somewhat cannibalistic. Here's where we're headed. You can see the red and white style, and it's got a wing that's similar to Babcock and Colonel Fuller and Parmigiani Belle itself. Let's get started with this. I'm going to start this thread just leaving about 1/8 of an inch behind the eye. And that is my head indicator. That's where I'm going to, that 1/8 of an inch is going to be where I'm going to have a head when all's said and done. I'm going to do just a bit of an underbody here by winding back and forth. It's going to be rather subtle. I want it fattest in the middle. And we'll enhance this as we go. Got a piece of flat gold tinsel. I'm going to tie in for the tip on the far side of the hook. Ray Bergman called this the tip. Everyone else in the world seems to call it a tag. It's the same thing. Taking 5 turns back and then 5 turns over those forward, going forward. And it looks like I've got a little bit of a little too much overwrap there. That's better. I'm going to bind this down underneath the hook. And that far tag or butt end of the tinsel will also get bound down underneath. The thread torque will pull it down underneath, which is convenient. Also has a lot to do with why I tie in on the far side of the hook. Work on this underbody just a little bit more. I don't want to overdo the taper. All right, I've cut slips here. A left and a right. And these are each about 3 strands wide, 3 or 4. Works well for these tails. And these are goose quill slips. And the way I like to tie these in, I straddle the hook, take a couple of loose turns around, kind of angling them towards me just a little bit. Then I will adjust them, looking at them from the top. These need to be pretty straight if you want the fly to swim correctly. I'm going to bind these down. I'm going to go about halfway to the eye, and then cut the remaining butts off at an angle. Again, working on this taper. I really want this to taper down a lot towards the front. I'm going to take the remaining tinsel and tie it in again on the far side of the hook for the rib. Next, I'm going to tie in 2 strands of Danville 4-strand floss. Once again, far side of the hook. I'm going to try to keep the floss underneath the shank as I bind it down forward. I never go back to the same spot twice when I'm going back and forth, because you'll get cliffs in the body if you do that, and I already don't like some of this. Yeah, I get this thread a little flatter. Go the other way. A little more taper than I wanted, but we'll go with that. I I like to stroke the floss before I start winding it. That gets any kinks and stuff that's, short fibers and pilling out of there to start with. And I got that idea from George Kelson's book, The Salmon Fly. He talks about doing that. The old books have a wealth of, I see I've got I don't like this. The old books have a wealth of information. Got a little lump there. I'm trapping twice. Lots of ways you can deal with it. The butt ends. That's just one. Too much taper here. We want 5 well spaced, evenly spaced turns of tinsel. And then I like to tie off on the side of the hook. Got that from Don Bastian, and it really is a good idea because it keeps if you're using metal tinsel, it keeps it off the top of the fly where it can get in the way of the wing. Oh, I thought I had a hackle ready to go, but this is Whiting American. And let me try to find a suitable hackle here. What I want, when all's said and done, I want the strands, after it's tied in, to reach about to the hook point. And this looks like it's going to work. Start it a little higher, about there. I like to try to tie in with at least 6 turns, if I've got the room. And then I will wind the hackle typically all the way to the eye. Okay, I'm going to pull this down into a beard. Still using the white thread here. I'm going to switch to black, but in this case, because the hackle's white, I don't want to do it yet. Don't want to switch yet. I just want to get this bound down enough so that it doesn't stick up over the any higher than the top of the hook shank. I think that'll work. I'm going to wax a length of black thread. The more you crowd the eye on the hook, the better your fly is going to look at the end. The better your wing is going. I'm sorry, the better the head is going to look. We want a short, blunt head on these flies. So we don't want to leave a lot of room. Kind of the opposite of everything you've heard your entire life about not crowding the eye. These wings were made from white and red goose feathers, and I'll show how to marry these at the end of the video. Right now we're going to try to mount them. I don't want this to extend too much beyond the end of the hook, so I'm going to move this up just a little bit. First thing I want to do is look at the far side, and sure enough, I have not quite gotten that straddled over there. Let's try this. It's better. Right there, I only had 2 turns of thread on that because it's kind of an adjustment phase that I like to do to get these wings properly situated. It's important for them to be as perfect as you can get. That looks good. twisting the bobbin up to strengthen the thread as I do this whole thing. And I think that's going to work. I've got about 4 turns total on this head right now. Spinning the bobbin again. I want to make sure this thread is strong because I use a lot of tension in this phase. A lot of... I want to get very aggressive here, wrapping up this head and binding this wing. That'll happen. Got a little too aggressive. But I'd rather do that and break the thread like that than not have this wing bound down sufficiently. Okay, I've got a little cliff area right there. Right there. I just want to get coverage over that. There we have the finished product. Let me pretty it up a bit and I'll be right back. All right, let's do a couple of quick spins around the fly and see what we've got. Pretty happy. Right now it's got a couple of coats of Sally Hansen's over some filler that I did with Griff's Thin. All in all, looks pretty good. And this is a fun one to do, and it's a little easier than the Parmigiani Bell. So give it a go. Oh, I almost forgot. I was going to show something about marrying the wings. These feathers are lefts. A red left and a white left. All of the great bulk of the fibers are on the left of the feather if you look at it from the front in an upright position. That's a left. This is the feather from the back. The stem on the feather will have a split. You can see how it's split right there. So you can always tell the back from the front pretty easily. So slips taken from a left quill feather will make up the far wing. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a slip. Let me get this focused. 4 strands wide or so from the red feather. That's gonna be our center, our stripe on the wing. And this, I've gotten it, it's hard to see here, but this is more than 4 strands. I'm going to bring it up here where I can see it. That's about 4 strands wide there. We'll call that 4 strands. Then I'm going to cut a section about 6 strands from the white. And that's not 6 strands. Really hard for me to see this if I don't hold it up close to myself, but can't get in focus there. Let's see if I can get this, if I can focus in on this. There. And that's more than 6 strands, I can tell from here. And you want to call out no more than a strand or 2 at a time. Makes a big difference. All right, so there's that. And then I'm going to do cut another section. The tips lined up there. And if I cut these a little big, it's not a problem. It wastes some material, but that's about it. These together. As long as you're using just lefts, they will go together beautifully. If you try to marry a left to a right, it'll never happen. Ever. And it can be very frustrating. So let me get this up close. And this will make up the far wing. And I'm going to strip out one more from the bottom. I want the whites to be about equal, and the red to be a little less than that. So this is going to be the far wing. As you can see, it curves. The tip curves towards me, and I like my wings tips together. Slips, therefore, taken from right feathers and married together will make up the near wing. And here are both wings completed.